Hi, everyone. My name's Christopher, and as Barry mentioned, I'm from ZALORA. So probably because all of you are from different parts of the world, you might not be familiar with ZALORA, so I'll give a brief introduction about the company. But in a nutshell, ZALORA is Asia's biggest online fashion destination. This is what our website looks like. We sell both our own in-house stables, but we also have global brands like your Calvin Klein, your Tommy Hilfiger. At the same time, we do have regional brands and local designers from the 6 markets that we're in. So we're actually part of a bigger group called the Global Fashion Group. So the Global Fashion Group is present in 24 countries and divided into 5 different regions. So in Brazil, we're called the Fiti. In Russia, in Eastern Europe, we're called La Moda. In the Middle East, we're called Namshi. And in Australia, we're the Iconic. And ZALORA is the one that covers Asia. So we're present in 6 countries across Southeast Asia and some Northern territories. So we are in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Indonesia, Philippines, Brunei, and Macau. So I think it's very obvious what we sell. We sell fashion. But what's interesting is that we're a 5-year-old brand. And a lot of people here who's shopped on ZALORA actually are surprised that we are that young because we've grown exponentially in the last 5 years. So when you look at our footprint across the region, we have close to 7 million Facebook fans, close to 1 million Instagram followers, close to 500,000 Twitter followers. And as you can see, we do have quite a number of regular unique visits across the region. So we are doing pretty okay for ourselves. And at the same time, I think what we give as a proposition is that we'll be able to change the way people shop fashion in the region. So what I'm here for, so when I came on board in ZALORA, and I came from a bigger agency, Ogilvy, so I see a lot of familiar faces here, which I'm happy. I basically had to set up my PR team from ground up. And setting up from ground up of a young company is not easy. I had to negotiate a lot of things and had to set up basically how we'll measure our performance as a department. Primarily because I'm sitting beside engineers, data analysts, so it's a compelling, I need to have a compelling KPI in order to justify having a headcount in every market, having a massive department. I have close to 25 people that I manage across the region. So it's a massive undertaking, and I had to justify why I need those people. So measurement is really part and parcel of what I needed to establish. And I think as a fashion brand, in building that fashion credential for us, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is really deal with how we talk about this through influencers. But let me give you a context of the world that we operate in right now. We're looking at a world where, we're having a visual revolution brought about by technology. As you know, when you look at how, there's a sudden increase of photos and images, terms like the visual web, dominating conversations in marketing, dominating how ads are done, from copies to revision of brand guidelines. We are now rethinking on how we communicate, because we communicate mainly through photos. Now, in fact, when you look at, when you look at how many photos are being put on Instagram per minute, we have almost 500,000 per minute that's being uploaded on Instagram. And I think, given change in its algorithm and in the videos coming in, we're going to have more and more of that. Photos and videos are becoming more of a norm across the platforms that we operate in. And that's why we needed to really tackle this and communicate our storytelling when it comes to the photos. When you talk about the visual revolution, we're seeing that it's brought about by smartphones. We're looking at how 2 billion images are shared on social media every day across the different social media platforms. But more and more marketers are being more aware about the importance of having, these visuals as part of the storytelling. And what happens right now is the storytelling is also given to the consumers that you have. So we needed to engage the consumers that also tells the brand stories. So how do you tell a story when you use the same platform? And how do you really, make them aspirational? The story that you put out aspirational for people. So, more and more, as we progress along PR, we've used and overused the term influencers in various ways, but it is what it is. But it's nothing new, really. We've always used celebrities. We've always used third-party endorsers to give us that brand affinity, halo effect of sort, in order to give credibility to what we have. So having an influencer strategy is, a cornerstone of what we do in ZALORA, given that we're a fashion e-commerce company. So with the rise of influencers, one of the challenges that we needed to undertake is how do we see, all these clothes, but still be relevant for the people that follows these influencers? Because if you ask the influencers, one of the things that they're going to tell you is they want it to be authentic. People follow them for a reason, and how do you support that? And that's how you need to, build around your strategy on how you approach them and how you deal with them, and how do you complement their story of authenticity in order to get their buy-in. Because at the end of the day, it's not just a transaction. I think the best way, and this is from experience, the way to engage influencers is to really have a relationship with them. So I listed down 3 challenges in terms of influencer marketing or influencer engagement. 1, identifying the right influencers. 2nd would be the measurement of them. And 3rd would be compliance. Compliance has been a touchy subject in the last 2 years in terms of advertising for influencers. When you hear those incidents like the Fire Festival, where influencers are front and center of the controversy, promoting a festival that flopped and had aggravated thousands of people. So in ZALORA, we use a 5-point system in choosing our influencers. First, we needed to look at the style factor. This is very self-explanatory, primarily because when you're selling fashion, you need to sell aspiration. A lot of people have approached us, a lot of celebrities, social influencers, or YouTube personalities, but we rejected them along the way, primarily because they were not right for the brand. I mean, you might have the best engagement, your cat videos might have a lot of engagement, but will it help the brand gain credibility? And so the first and one of the more important rule that we put in place is that the influencer we engage need to have that style factor. Of course, followers and reach matters because, we also try to measure cost per engagement, which I'm going to talk to you about in the later slide. We need to look at content relevance. Are they the ones that post fashion or beauty, or at least allied brands? Because if they don't, then whatever you push to them will not look organic. It will look forced, and it's not going to be as influential as you want it to be. 4th, of course, would be the sharing frequency. We've seen from experience that the more regular they post, the more that they're hungry for content, the more they're willing to work something out for you and work with you, because they will need to have content at one point in the week or in the day. So sharing and frequency is another factor. And last but not the least, brand interaction. Are they the ones who will wear high street, or do they just wear branded products like your Gucci's, your Ralph Lauren, or do they wear Topshop, Mango? Because brand assortment is pretty important for us. We sell high street to bridge to luxury brands, but we don't sell luxury brands. I think that's the positioning that we're trying to put now for ourselves. So measuring influencer marketing, the second point, I've listed out 4 ways that we measure in ZALORA. One would be brand visibility. I wanted to highlight brand visibility because though this is a little bit vague, but it's also about how you align the target market, the target audience. It's not vague when you position it in the way that you talk about this influencer has a certain demographic that they attract. These are the type of people that, for example, follow edgy styles or Korean styles, which makes perfect sense for the Korean brands that we launch. So the brand visibility is higher because the followers of this influencer actually has that. Second would be cost per engagement. I think the term by itself is we're basically, putting dollar signs to the likes, comments, videos, page views that you have, or whatever metrics there is. But I think for me, the most interesting part of measuring it, and when I argue and go present it to my C-level executives, would be to talk about how working with influencers can help me with my content creation. This is especially helpful when you talk about the more visual web that we're in right now. In the past, we've collaborated with influencers in generating videos that we've pushed not only on our channels, but on their channels too, making it a 360 effort from both sides. But at the same time, we also need to argue that indeed we can help move the needle. And there are 3 ways that we usually do this in terms of, measuring influencer marketing. We've done it through affiliate links, but not all influencers would want to have an affiliate banner in their blog. So we actually give them promo codes. Promo codes, the way we position it is that they incentivize their readers to be able to shop. We give discounts to that have personalized, customized discounts. For example, their Instagram handle can be the voucher code that their followers use. So we can track the actual conversion. And then, of course, the Google Analytics, where we can track the customers who visited the e-commerce site through the portals or the blogs of these influencers. I think it's important that I show you the options that we've used, the 4 options that we've used across, because I don't think there's like one blanket solution or measurement. It depends, per campaign or to what end you want the influencer strategy to be for different, segments of the marketing calendar. You will engage them for different purposes. Either you're, for example, pushing them for a sales event, pushing them for a brand launch, using them to talk about, general lifestyle things, or go to fashion weeks. So you need to have at least, flexibility in terms of how you measure them. I think compliance is an important part of the conversation, primarily because, especially when you talk about compliance in Singapore or Hong Kong and Taiwan, which have very strict advertising protocol. I've been sitting with legal for the last 2 years in drafting contracts, making sure that all my influencer engagements are within legal terms, with compliance to the code of advertising and compliance to internal audits from our sides. So I think it's pretty important that you keep yourself abreast with current advertising protocols in your respective markets. To sum it up, for me, I really think that all you need to have is a great idea, a great talent, which is your influencer. Try to get the great content out of it and figure out the right distribution for you to be able to get a measurable product. Because when you talk about influencer engagement, it's not just about having that one post. It's really about having that relationship, and how do you measure the impact of that relationship, not only about pushing sales, but in the general sense of business. As you've heard the speakers before me talk about, it's a long-term strategy. The hug will take its time to be able to have its full effect measured. So one of the developments that we're doing right now with influencers is that we started using influencers to create user-generated content, wherein in the next 1 to 2 months, we're going to roll out a page wherein all the influencer hashtags, we're going to put them in one page in order to complement our catalog. So I think the catalogs right now, of course, you know, as you can, as you've probably shopped online, catalogs will have very stiff models, modeling some of the clothes. You vamp it up with, you know, the use of influencers, because the same T-shirt can be styled in so different ways, in many different ways, and you get. And the hypothesis behind this is that if you show people different ways of styling the same product, not only on the catalog, and these are all shoppable photos, will you be able to convert them into sales? So that's the hypothesis that we're doing, and that's the test that we're doing in the next 2 months. And I think it's one way of really looking at how, you know, using influencer marketing as part of that measurable deliverable for PR professionals like us. And you know, I'm pretty excited to try out a lot of new things. You know, figure that, you know, when Instagram rolls out its shoppable posts, there's already shoppable photos coming in. So we will see a change in how we interact with them again. But at the end of the day, I think we just need to stick with the basics, know our strengths, know what you want to get out of them, and then and really figure out and have that conversation with your C-level executives on why this kind of engagement matters for marketing and how this contributes to brand building. Because, you know, when you'll be able to measure everything from content generation to you know, moving the needle, you'll be able to really justify the kind of effort, the amount of effort you put into influencer marketing. And again, it makes sense for us in fashion to be able to push this. Of course, it's case-to-case basis depending on the industry you're in. But that's basically my general idea, that, you know, try to figure out what makes sense in your industry, but be sure that, you know, you have that conversations beforehand with your C-level executive, because there is a way actually in measuring all this, and it doesn't have to be the gray area. And, you know, for the last 4 years, 3-4 years that I've been with ZALORA, I think we've been happy with how we progress in terms of our branding and how people perceive our branding. We're actually in the middle of rebranding our positioning. We're going from high street to bridge to luxury. We've changed the assortment model that we have. So this comes in pretty handy. Are we getting the right influencers to work for us? Are the right people talking about us? Are we targeting the right people? Can we sell $100 T-shirts now? That's always going to be the question that we're going to have. But, you know, happy to take any questions from the case study from ZALORA. Barry?
So, fashion. Come on, folks. It may be late in the day, but that should rock a few socks. Very interested in that approach. Do we have any measurement questions for Christopher?
Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm curious a little bit more to find out a little bit more about where you generated your compliance policies that you're asking your influencers to follow, and obviously how do you then sanction? How do you manage it really?
So I think for us, because we operate in 6 very different markets, we have to work with our legal team pretty closely, because each market's, Hong Kong's advertising, consumer protection, and then Singapore's you know, advertising platform guidelines are slightly similar, but also very different in terms of implementation. It's really about being able to know the nuances in these markets. So it's really not a blanket approach. It's a case-to-case basis. I think that's the difficulty of working in the region. We don't have a ready set of guidelines that I can implement across. I really always need to have local input for that. And it does help for us to have a local team in place, and this gives context in whatever that we do. And that's why it takes a while for us to figure out a regional strategy, because the regional strategy is really how autonomous will we give, how much autonomy will we give our local markets for this. But it's still being held in the sense that compliance has to be part of the structure. If you engage, for example, this influencer, do you have the contract? Did legal sign off this contract? What was the terms in that contract?
And when you produce reports showing your team's work, how does the senior management of ZALORA receive them? Do you present it?
So I think two things. We very much happy with the help we get from Essentia in terms of how we get our daily monitoring report. Being in retail, fashion, and e-commerce, all three very fast-moving industry, I need to be on top of everything. When someone basically accuse us of selling our database, I should be able to go and be able to address that immediately. Same goes when there are rumors about this and that. The thing with e-commerce in the region is that there's always going to be rumors about how you're performing, are you losing jobs? And so you needed to address that, and having that every morning coming in makes me aware of what I need to prepare my team for. But more importantly, it gives me more of a comprehensive look. So when I present every month to my CEO what the team has done and how we actually address issues, it's a mix of, these are the things and these are the issues that have surfaced. This is how we deal with it. This was the resulting news. If we wouldn't be able to do that if we don't have a ready set of news coming in every day for us.
Okay. We'll take one question on the front from Ruth Pastana.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Ruth from Ketchum. I'm interested to find out a bit more how you identify your influencers. You talked about the criteria you have for assessing them, but do you find the influencers by just having the influencers approach you, or do you use research tools to identify them?
So we use a couple of things. We do have, again, the good thing about being surrounded by engineers and data analysts is that we do have data scientists crunching our numbers. We do our research in terms of the engagement. Are their followers bought, or are they organic? So we do that due diligence. But more importantly, I think one of the ways is we also look at the brand profile. We're a multi-label retailer, so a Dorothy Perkins influencer may not be right for a Calvin Klein influencer or a Cotton On influencer, because they have different brand persona. It's really about characters. There's also a trend right now in terms of influencers where you categorize micro-influencers, smaller in numbers, but still very influential in their field, probably just 5K followers, but a regional director of this, and every single person who's in sport basically follows that person. So there are nuances to it, and you just needed to find it out. But again, it's a combination of having data back you up and having the guts to be able to stand up and say, this is the right influencer, not because of just engagement, but because they're right for the brand. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to call stop there because we will overrun the day otherwise. And please join me in thanking Christopher. It's been a real pleasure having you here.